This segment brought to you by Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center. Your stem cells, your health, your life.
Welcome to Kansas, gateway to...
Most of the time, the name of Tom Alderdice is mentioned in the history books because of his wife, Susanna, a story we will get to in a moment. But even before the tragedy that made headlines with his family, Tom had led an interesting life. Tom was a Pennsylvanian, but he had served in the Confederate Army from Mississippi. Captured at Chickamauga, he found himself a prisoner of war at Rock Island, Illinois. Then he became galvanized and was sent to Kansas in the Union Army. Upon discharge, he remained in Kansas to start a new life. He met the widow, Susanna Daly, who had moved to Salina with her parents, 2 small children in tow. Tom and Susanna married and homesteaded along the Saline River near Spillman Creek, pretty close to present-day Lincoln, Kansas. They had 2 children themselves and lives full of hope and promise. Then came the Indian raids, and settlements along the Solomon River in Mitchell and Cloud counties were hit the hardest. In response, the Army would form an elite group of civilian scouts to find the hostiles' location. Tom answered the call, as did his brother-in-law, Eli Ziegler, the youngest to sign on with Major George Forsyth. The men from this neighborhood were called the Solomon Avengers and were out for blood to atone for that spilled along the Solomon. These 2 men survived the scouts' ordeal at what would become known as Beecher Island and returned to their homes. But all was not peaceful. The following year, Susanna, expecting her 5th child, was kidnapped, clutching her baby girl Alice. Her boys were shot down and left for dead in front of her. When Tom took up the trail, he found the body of his little girl, strangled and tossed aside for crying. As the 5th Cavalry engaged the Cheyennes at Summit Springs, Colorado Territory, in an attempt to rescue Susanna and another captive, Susanna was killed. A proper Christian burial was conducted the next day, and the grave was not marked so that it would not be disturbed. It remains lost to time. In the grand reunion of Forsyth Scouts, Tom Alderdice will be portrayed by veteran performer Tom Leahy of Conway Springs, Kansas. Folks may recognize Tom as having portrayed Abraham Lincoln in the Lincoln Day events or as Quantrell in the Lone Chimney Films production Bloody Dawn.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
Fort Wallace was the fightingest fort in the West. Fossils, Indians, soldiers, scouts, wagons, trails, pioneers, stories. Discover the story of Fort Wallace and the people who served here, the people who fought here, the people who settled here. Wallace County, where the past is present.